When the Diecast Mafia announced their Scrap Bin Challenge build, it seemed like a great time for me to go through a bunch of stuff that Danny Bracken gave me a while back and choose one of those to do for this build. Now, some of you may recall I did a Thunder Roller custom for Danny about a year ago, and at that time he sent me a bunch of stuff. All kinds of castings, a bag of wheels, a bag of glass, a bag of interior. I'll show you some of that later. But as I was going through that stuff, I found this Mustang wagon that he had started. He had taken a Matchbox wagon, and I wasn't sure. I knew it was a Mustang. I wasn't sure which Mustang, and I compared it to all of the Mustangs I have and didn't have the one that matched this. But you see, he was making it into a wagon. And I love this. I have a bunch of stuff that Danny started and he sent to me. So I threw it in the stripper. And there you see the wagon portion. And this impressed the heck out of me. He narrowed that wagon roof so it would fit the Mustang. So those chops he did. I didn't do those cuts. He did that stuff. And when I saw how nice this was done, I decided I wasn't going to go a Gasland's direction with it. I wanted to make this look good because he had done such great work on it. I didn't want to hide that work, by weathering it and Gaslandsing it out. So that's my direction. Now here you see the bags of stuff and the tub. So what I did, once I saw this casting, I saw the direction I wanted to go, which wasn't Gaslands. I sifted through those bags, and thank God I found the base, I found the interior, I found the glass. He hadn't used any of those yet on any of his other builds. And trust me, I've got all kinds of things that he started that I hope to get to at some point. I definitely will use the pieces and stuff. But I thought, no, I'm going to make this one fancy. And it turns out this is a Matchbox 1968 Mustang GT CS California Special. So first thing I did, after stripping it obviously, is I used CA glue just to tack the roof back on. Just to make sure it's all going to work out. And I'm it won't be CA glue keeping this thing together. But it's just there to tack it together for now. And I drill it and tap it and get it ready so I can just screw the base on later. Did not make any changes to the cuts he made. They were perfect. But yeah, it was my excuse to use JV Weld. You knew this was going to happen, right? I'm not going to rely on CA glue to hold it together. So mix up some JV Weld. And what I end up doing, and you'll see this here, and this is 5 times normal speed in case you're curious. I end up putting a very thin layer on the top because I don't want this fighting me. I'm just trying to fill in any openings that exist on the top. And then I go heavier, obviously, on the inside for the strength. So that's what I'm doing here. And it is, I mixed it up a little thin. Not, I'm going pretty damn close to 50-50, which is what you're supposed to use. I'm a little bit lighter on it. But there you see, once the JB Weld is on, and I'm pretty happy at that point. I set it aside, to set up overnight. Next day, bust out the 800 grit sandpaper and get to work, smoothing the top. And this, obviously, there's huge chunks of sanding that are missing from this video because it went through this for quite a while. I sanded the heck out. As you can see there, you're seeing some of the initial results of the sanding. And I want this to be obviously as smooth as possible before I go to put nice paint on. I did need to put, that's a piece of an old axle that I cut there because for the back window of the wagon, I need a rail. I need a trim piece there. And on the sides, I need to square them up a little bit with the door openings so that visually it would be right. On that back trim piece, part of the reason for that is because I'm going to be using micro crystal clear to pull back windows on these. And so I needed that rail. The interior was completely chrome. Obviously, I don't want much to show up on the inside of this. I don't want chrome because I don't want you to see the work that's been done on the inside through the windows. So I stripped that off. Throw it in the Super Clean. It removed the chrome remarkably fast. I think this thing was in there less than 5 minutes and the chrome was gone. Whoa, lost the cap. Yeah, sometimes the chrome just flies off in Super Clean. After I'd done all that sanding, I hit the top with Bondo spot putty. And that's what's going to give me that final filling in of any problems. I know the roof is strong at this point from the JB weld, and that's doing the final smoothing on that roof line. I did need to take a file and try and clean up those side pillars because I had added, in order to square them up, I did use tiny pieces of axle there as well. JB welded that stuff in place. There you see after the first primer, and I did need to do a little bit more filling with the spot putty and back to sanding again. Yeah, there's a lot of sanding on this. And what I end up doing on the side pillars, I shape them a little bit, but I also try and hide them. They end up getting painted black. I went with Nassau Blue Metallic, Chevy color. Yeah, it's a Ford Mustang, but I love Nassau Blue. Once that was all done, I went with the Worth Clear. There you see it after the Nassau Blue. And it's at this point, and I'm just going to let you watch what happens in the rest of the video here for a little bit as I'm adding detail and stuff, blackening out the interior and stuff. To say that right after I painted it with the Nassau Blue, I was really happy with how it was looking. And I wanted to, I haven't been in contact with Danny for a while. Most of you know I don't do commission work. I don't sell castings or anything like that. I basically build things for myself. Some I give away, but I don't do commission work. I mean, Danny approached me a year ago, a little over a year ago, and asked, said he wanted to send me all this stuff, and he had this idea for the Thunder Roller build. I typically don't do those things, but I did for Danny because there was a connection to Danny because Danny had battled cancer. The man had been through hell. And so I thought, I wanted to do that Thunder Roller build. All the stuff he sent me was great. I loved the work that he had done himself on stuff that I'm hoping, like I said, to complete at some point. And so I did the Thunder Roller build, and part of the reason I don't do commission work is because it stresses me out. But I did that one, and he was thrilled with it. And the video's done really well, actually, too. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I painted it lime ice. But, Danny and I would be in contact now and then, but not all that often. And I knew he was fighting cancer again. And so I hadn't heard from him for a little while. So I wanted to, when I saw how it turned out with the paint, I wanted to send him a picture. So I went online and went to send him a picture. And that's when I realized that Danny passed away about a month ago, on October 11th, at the age of 52. So I really want this to turn out well. So, it's interesting that the timing on this, and that I thought now to do this build, and that this build came up, and so anyhow, this one's for you, Danny, and so I kept going in the direction I was going, and there you see the glass. I was thrilled that I was able to find the glass, even though I'm not obviously going to use all of it. Polished it up with flitz, and you know what happens after flitz. In this case, something different happens. And I'm not sure why I made you suffer through watching me do all this flitz stuff, but anyhow, there you see how it polished up. It's always handy to have a little chunk of wood. That's obviously a paint stirring stick. But I knew I needed to cut the back half of that glass off. So there's my handy dandy X-Acto saw. That everybody needs a handy dandy X-Acto saw. So I use it to make virtually the entire cut. And then as I get towards the end of it, I switch over to the handy dandy X-Acto knife. Make that finished cut because it's that weird softish kind of plastic. It's better than like interior plastic, but yet it's, you know what I mean. Then it was gauzy time. For those of you still playing the every time he says gauzy, take a shot of your favorite beverage, the game still is going on. So, dunk that. And I do cut a chunk out of there because it's interesting. Sometimes I'll pull the glass out of gauzy and I'll notice something like a little bubble or something I don't like. And so I just redunk it, before it dries. But I eyeball it pretty well once I take it out, and then you wick off the excess. And in that process, sometimes you'll notice, little air bubbles or something, or maybe even a speck of something that somehow got in there. And then the hardest part here was getting it to sit down. I needed to grab another pair of tweezers so that I could hold it. And I do apologize for the length of this video. We're only like 2/3 of the way through this video. But this is a special build, and a lot went into it. I kind of want to show a lot of that. When it came time to do the chrome, and that's after this has been taken out of the super clean and rinsed off, and at this point I knew I was going to put chrome, but I went over a lot of this with the silver Sharpie to start off with, because I wanted to lay down the silver Sharpie, especially on the taillights, that then I used the Tamiya clear red over with a toothpick in each one of those little tiny squares. And then once all of that dried, I went over the silver then with the Molotow chrome pin. That is the 2mm pin. But my thinking was, and this is the first time that I recall trying this, my thinking is that if I couldn't get into some of the areas with the Molotow pin, and I didn't want to go with 1mm because of how it runs sometimes if you're not careful, I thought that would be a good way to approach it, like a silver and then chrome over it. So I did put license plates on this. I put the old 60s style California license plates that I'm very familiar with, having been in California in the 60s. So there you see where that's at. I did some very light interior detail because I want that interior to basically disappear. The micro crystal clear for pulling the clear windows works really well. This is where the but comes in. It works really well, but you can run into issues like in this case where I have metal on the other side of that opening. And so it's not just a window opening and it just opens to the bottom open air of a typical casting. Right behind this back window is the back of that original Mustang. So it oddly made it a little more difficult to pull, not terribly so. And then I don't do that often enough to really remember the best ways to do it, where you get more along the toothpick itself and just pull across that opening almost in one big swoop downward. And as you can see, I did silver detail on this. That chunk of the windshield, that little chunk, I used the bonded resin pin, which I really like using the resin pin to hold in glass. You'll see me do that probably more often than not when the glass needs to be attached in some way. I definitely try and avoid CA glue for that if I can. And anyhow, that's basically it. There you see the base. I shot the base with the Nassau blue as well. Used that darker spot in the center. That's where the tape was that I used to hold it on the helping hands. But the way Matchbox constructed this vehicle really helped me out in being able to shoot the bottom and top with that color and still have the chrome in between. And yeah, as you did notice earlier as I was talking, I did do a red line conversion on this as well, because I just like red lines. I thought it would look sharp. And as nice as the original Matchbox wheels were, I did not want to use them. And I'm not sure why. I just thought Danny would like this with red lines on it. If you remember back to a Python I built right before the Thunder Roller, that was built from parts. Danny had all the parts for that Python in the tub. And so I thought, well, heck, let me just build the Python. And I sent that out to him, and he was thrilled with it. So anyhow, there you see where we started. Danny's original work on this, and he did a lot of Gasland style stuff. But I just, I decided to take this in a different direction. I'd really like to thank the Diecast Mafia for hosting this event, and be sure and check out the members of the Mafia's build and everybody else participating in this event. And it's interesting just the timing, how it all worked out, and how I thought I'd use one of Danny's builds for this, something he had started. So thanks to them for that, and thanks to Danny for providing this casting, and that's where it was. Here's where it ended up. I hope you all like this build. I'm pretty darn happy with it. It's dramatically different than where it started. I think the Mustang makes a great wagon. I love the looks of this. The fact that he narrowed that roof on the wagon to make it fit that Mustang window, the Mustang front body style, was fantastic. And I just hope I've done this justice. So there's some glamour shots coming up. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. God bless you, Danny. And catch y'all on the next one.